The hall of the Galactic Senate shimmered, like a cathedral carved from 1,000 dying suns. Every species of note was present, scaled, feathered, gelatinous, crystalline. Each one draped in arrogance and silk-like robes that caught the glow of the chamber's orbiting chandeliers. In the center, alone at a glass dais, stood a human woman no taller than their average adolescent, nursing a cup of coffee, as though the galaxy's fate depended on caffeine. Her name was Alara Vale, Earth's ambassador, age 29, slight build, composed expression, and eyes like quiet traps. Her shoes made no sound on the marble of compressed nebula dust. A few alien delegates whispered translations of her body temperature, posture, and scent. Primitive mammal. One sneered in a slithering dialect. Sweats under pressure. Another murmured, smiling while surrounded, possible madness. Alara only smiled wider, adjusting her collar with a kind of casual precision that terrified people who notice patterns. High Consul Trek of urine, a reptilian twice her height with opalescent scales, struck his staff for silence. The council recognizes the representative of Sol 3, he hissed, his tongue tasting the air. We expected a general or a scientist. Instead, we receive a female with, how do your records call it, emotional volatility. Alara tilted her head. Ah, she said softly, voice light as a spring wind. You read the comment section. Laughter, human, translated into a dozen confused murmurs, bounced around the hall. Even the archivist Kairos, a six-eyed insectoid historian perched beside the console, clicked a tiny sound of amusement. The Empire, Trek continued undeterred, has declared that humanity must dismantle its planetary defense network. You have weaponized logic engines orbiting your moon, machines that dream of annihilation. Alara stirred her coffee, the spoon's clink echoing faintly. They dream of order, she said. Annihilation's just the byproduct when people ignore polite requests. Gasps rustled through the chamber like wind through reeds. A gelatinous ambassador from the Brel Collective shuddered, its translator blinking. Did she just threaten us? I think, Alara replied kindly, you might be overreacting. We're known for that too. There was humor, but beneath it, steel. A silence settled. Kairos leaned forward, mandibles twitching. Ambassador Vale, tell us, what drives humans? Conquest? Survival? Neither, she said, eyes flicking to him with the stillness of deep water. Curiosity. But curiosity gets expensive when someone slaps it out of your hands. The murmuring resumed. She took another sip, grimacing slightly. Terrible coffee, she muttered, mostly to herself. Behind her, the Senate's great screens displayed footage of recent skirmishes, a human destroyer surrounded by Empire ships, holding its fire even as hull plating melted. You see, said Trek, baring serrated teeth. Your species resists regulation. Violence lingers in your genome. You breed predators. Alara's smile didn't reach her eyes. We also breed diplomats, she said. Some of them used to be predators. Progress, right? The consul hissed, tail flicking. Do not test us. I'm here so I don't have to, she replied, calm as an executioner before sunrise. The chamber doors burst open with metallic thunder. A contingent of Imperial guards, 4 meters tall, plated in silver exosuits, marched in and encircled her. The lead officer raised a gauntlet hand. By order of His Radiance, the human delegation stands under investigation for espionage. Espionage. Alara echoed. That's adorable. We can't even keep our Wi-Fi stable. No one laughed this time. The trooper stepped closer, visor reflecting her face in fractured angles. You will surrender your datalink badge. Alara looked down at the badge pinned over her heart, thin, translucent, pulsing faintly with blue light. Of course, she said, reaching for it with 2 fingers. Then, in a motion so fast most species couldn't process it, the officer struck her. The sound cracked across the hall. Her head snapped sideways, hair spilling over one eye. For a long moment, no one moved. Somewhere, a translator glitched, stuttering through a dozen unfinished words. A drop of blood traced her lips' edge. She straightened slowly, brushing the blood with the back of her hand. smearing it into a faint red streak. Her voice, when it came, was almost a whisper. "Noted." Trek blinked, confused. "Noted. Just documenting," she said. "It helps me remember who's still civilized." The hall seemed to tilt, the lights flickering once. Kyrus's antennae trembled. Something invisible pulsed in the electromagnetic field, a subtle frequency shift that made several alien instruments malfunction. The guard stepped back uncertainly. Alara lowered her gaze, voice calm as meditation. "You know, back on Earth, when someone slaps a diplomat, it usually means one of two things: a duel's about to start, or a very old treaty just ended." The consul's eyes narrowed. "You dare threaten?" "I don't threaten," she interrupted, gently setting her coffee cup on the glass table. The porcelain clink was small, delicate, final. "I clarify." Outside the hall, unseen by any except the station's silent observers, 12 tiny satellites pivoted in synchronized motion. Their optical lenses adjusted, focusing on the capital's coordinates. Inside, Alara sighed softly. "For the record," she said, "I came here to keep peace. Peace is beautiful. It's just fragile when people enjoy breaking things." One of the gelatinous ambassadors muttered through its translator, "Humans are unstable." She replied, "That's why we invented chairs, to sit down before we do something regrettable." Laughter rippled again, nervous this time. Trek's tail lashed. "Enough mockery. You will be detained until the Emperor decides your fate." "Of course," she said sweetly, folding her hands. "But I must warn you, my planet has a habit of sending people to retrieve me. And they're very bad at taking orders." Her tone carried no weight of drama, only weary amusement. Yet every being in the room felt it, the sudden gravity of quiet menace, the sense that beneath her soft words lay something far older than diplomacy. Kyrus leaned close to the consul and whispered, "And this now. You struck a predator while it smiled." The consul scoffed. "A predator? This is a bureaucrat." But as the guard seized her arms, Alara exhaled, and the temperature in the hall dropped 2 degrees. Frost bloomed faintly on the railings. The badge on her chest pulsed once, red. "Ambassador Vale," one guard barked, "surrender." She met his mirrored visor, her reflection tiny, bloodied, composed. "Surrender," she repeated softly, "is such a human word. We don't do it often. Not well, anyway." The lights dimmed again. A low hum spread through the walls, felt more than heard. Several delegates panicked, clutching at malfunctioning communicators. "Power surge," someone cried. Alara only smiled, almost apologetically. "Oh, don't worry," she said. "That's probably my coffee machine syncing with orbit. Happens sometimes." Her eyes, though, gleamed with something colder than humor. Kyrus whispered a prayer in his tongue, one meant for observing catastrophes. "Baba Yaga," he murmured, remembering a myth he'd once archived, about a woman who haunted the ruins of wars, smiling through the smoke. Alara blinked slowly, as if she'd heard. Then she let herself be led toward the exit, silent and dignified, her badge glowing brighter with every step. Behind her, the council's alarms began to whisper to life. And far above the Senate world, humanity's quiet machines turned their faces toward the Empire's heart. They marched her through the Senate's undercorridors, a maze of chrome veins and humming conduits that smelled faintly of ozone and arrogance. The guards kept their distance now, their metallic steps synchronized but cautious, as though the small woman between them carried a contagion they couldn't name. Alara Vale walked without resistance, wrists bound by a restraint field that shimmered faintly around her skin. Her expression was untroubled, almost curious, like a tourist on a guided tour of hell. "Your silence will be noted," said the lead guard, voice modulated and hollow. She gave a small nod. "Good. You're improving." The remark unsettled them. No one spoke again until the doors hissed open to reveal the holding chamber, a stark cube of light, magnetic walls. Gravity recalibrated to keep captives off balance. One of the guards shoved her forward. She didn't stumble. Instead, she looked up at the glowing ceiling and sighed. "You know, for an empire that claims moral superiority, your decor screams unresolved trauma." The guard's visor flickered. You think this is a joke? I think, she said, you haven't realized yet that I'm not the one in a cell. The field deactivated briefly as they scanned her for weapons. Her heart rate remained at 48 beats per minute. The technician frowned. How are you this calm? Practice, she said, and yoga. He stared, unsure if she was serious. She smiled faintly, and that uncertainty deepened into unease. Through the glass wall, High Consul Trek and Archivist Kairos watched from the observation gallery. Contain her until the Emperor's arrival, Trek ordered. If she resists, use phase suppression. Kairos's antennae trembled. Phase suppression will disintegrate her nervous system. She is unarmed. She is human, Trek snapped. That is weapon enough. Inside, Ilara sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes half-lidded. The silence hummed with tension, broken only by the subtle tick of her badge against the energy field. It pulsed every 22 seconds, a heartbeat that did not belong to her. In the far reaches of orbit, 12 satellites aligned with precise mathematical symmetry. To anyone watching, they appeared to be repositioning for calibration. To those who knew better, it was choreography. She opened one eye as the field flickered. There you are, she whispered. The guard nearest her shifted uneasily. What did you say? Talking to my coffee machine, she said lightly. It misses me. The restraint field shimmered again, crackling faintly. Her wrists flexed against the light. It bent, not broke. Yet the tiny distortion rippled through the security network like a hairline fracture in glass. Trek turned toward Kairos. Do you see that? Yes, the insectoid murmured. She's not resisting the field. She's synchronizing with it. Trek scoffed. Impossible. Humans lack the neural structure for. The field vanished. Just blinked out. In the same instant, Ilara moved. There was no transition, no build-up. One moment stillness, the next a blur of geometry and physics rewriting themselves. She struck the nearest guard's neck joint, caught his weapon mid-fall, and used his armored body as a springboard to disable the next. In less than 3 seconds, 5 armored giants were sprawled across the chamber, twitching as their systems shorted out. Kairos flinched despite himself. It's her heartbeat, he realized. She's fighting to rhythm. Perfectly timed. Trek slammed the alarm. Seal the level. Ilara turned toward the observation window, hair in slight disarray, eyes calm. The rifle in her hands looked absurdly large against her frame. High Consul, she said through the speaker, voice faintly distorted but still polite. I think we need to revisit the definition of diplomacy. Do you know what you've done? Trek spat. Of course, she said. That's why I let you do it first. The room's emergency lighting flared crimson. The glass wall began to seal with an energy shield, but Ilara was already moving. She aimed not at them, but at the ceiling grid, firing a precise burst that shorted out the gravity regulators. Every object in the chamber rose in slow motion, the guards, the weapons, the splinters of light. She floated between them like a dancer, flipping gracefully, the rifle slung across her back now like a bow. Kairos whispered, "This isn't warfare. It's art." On the main broadcast channel, billions of aliens across the Empire watched the feed before it abruptly cut to static. Too late. They had already seen her break free. On human screens across the Sol system, a message flashed. Protocol mirror. Confirmed. In Luna Command, Admiral Reeves rubbed his temples. She said she'd handle it quietly, he muttered. Technically, his aide replied, she hasn't spoken above conversational volume. Back in the chamber, Ilara landed softly as gravity returned. She stepped over the unconscious guards and pressed her palm to the security console. It recognized her biometric data immediately, not as prisoner, but as administrator. Thank you, she said to no one in particular. Always nice when the galaxy forgets to change its passwords. Doors opened before her like obedient servants. She walked through them at a leisurely pace, scanning the corridors. Her reflection followed her in the mirrored walls. Blood smeared faintly across her cheek like war paint. She wiped it off with a sleeve. No need to look feral, she murmured. First impressions and all. Down the hall, an emergency team advanced, weapons drawn. Ambassador Vale, one shouted. On your knees. She stopped, tilting her head. Funny, she said. That's exactly what your fleet's about to do. They hesitated, uncertain. Then the lights dimmed again. Through the ceiling viewport, the sky above the capital planet bloomed with white flares. Human drones igniting orbital formation. The guards froze, staring upward. Ilara smiled softly, stepping past them as alarms wailed. You see, she said conversationally, we don't start wars. We just finish our meetings very, very thoroughly. She entered the elevator shaft, overriding controls with a flick of her badge. The lift ascended silently toward the surface. As it rose, she could hear the Senate collapsing into chaos above, shouts, orders, denials, fear. Her earpiece crackled. Ilara, a voice whispered Admiral Reeves again. You're on the feed. Everyone saw. The Emperor's demanding your surrender. She smiled faintly, watching her reflection in the steel door. Good. Then he's paying attention. Command authorizes extraction. Do you need assistance? I need coffee, she said, and a 10-minute head start. The elevator stopped. The doors opened onto the observation deck overlooking the planet's horizon. A vast sea of golden clouds cut by blue lightning. The city below glittered with panic. She stepped forward, the wind catching her coat. Through the glass barrier, hundreds of alien ships repositioned in frantic defense. But above them, like predatory stars, Earth's vessels waited in perfect silence. No threat broadcasts, no demands. Just presence. Ilara touched her earpiece again. Tell command to hold fire, she said. We're not monsters. Reeves hesitated. And if they shoot first? Her lips curved slightly. Then I stop pretending we're not. Behind her, a low hum filled the air, security doors reopening, boots pounding toward her. She didn't turn. Instead, she gazed at the horizon and whispered, Power is rarely where you're looking. The glass reflected her face, calm, almost gentle. But her eyes burned with something vast and cold, the same quiet fury that had made entire worlds hesitate before crossing Earth twice. And as the reflection rippled with the flicker of orbital firelight, she smiled, the kind of smile that made predators remember what it felt like to be prey. The first explosion bloomed in silence, light without sound, like a flower unfolding in space. From the Senate's orbiting station, Ilara watched the fire expand beneath the glass horizon, a golden wound spreading through the capital's defense grid. Around her, the air trembled with panicked voices, commands in a dozen alien tongues colliding like waves. She did not move. She only whispered, Music, please. Somewhere in the void, a human satellite obeyed. Beethoven's Seventh Symphony flooded the comm channels, strings and brass cutting through static. It was absurd, glorious, and perfectly human. Alien crews froze mid-command, their translators struggling to define the sound. It's a battle cry, one asked. No, another said, voice trembling, it's joy. Ilara stepped onto the deck, wind tugging at her hair, city lights burning below. Her earpiece clicked. Admiral Reeves' voice came through, steady but grim. Mirror fleet in position. Awaiting your word, Baba Yaga. She hated that name. Once it had been a whisper, a myth built from the ruins of black ops and urban shadows. Now it was an emblem, the civilized demon that Earth unleashed when diplomacy failed. Not yet, she replied softly. We're still negotiating. A squadron of alien fighters streaked through the clouds, firing plasma arcs toward the human drones above. They never reached them. The drones shifted in a silent pattern, forming a shield lattice that absorbed every strike. The Empire's generals screamed for answers, but the human ships remained quiet, patient, calculating. Ilara's voice echoed across their encrypted frequencies. You came here thinking humans fear death. We don't. We just hate wasting time. A young alien officer burst into the chamber, panting, his scales dull with fear. Ambassador, please. Our defense networks are collapsing. The Emperor requests parley. Ilara looked at him, barely more than a boy, trembling under the weight of a dying empire. I requested that 3 hours ago, she said gently. Now it's a rescue operation. Outside, The sky fractured into mirrored streaks of light as human drones dove into formation. No weapons, no kinetic fire, just interference waves. Each one disrupted propulsion fields, gently disabling enemy ships and guiding them to safe descent. It was ruthless mercy, engineered humiliation. The Empire's proudest fleets landed intact yet powerless, their systems overridden by an algorithm hidden inside Alara's badge. Kairos, the archivist, arrived at her side, breathless. "You could end them," he said. "Why spare them?" She watched the distant lights flicker, jaw tightening. "Because extinction's too easy," she said. "Fear lasts longer." He studied her face, noting the tiny tremor beneath her composure. "You despise what you are doing." "I despise that it's necessary." The chamber shook. Through the window, the Emperor's flagship emerged from the shadow of the upper atmosphere, a colossal structure like a floating cathedral of black glass. Thousands of smaller vessels orbited it, forming a shield halo. From its heart came a voice that filled every channel, every frequency. "Human," it thundered. "You defy the throne. You bring ruin for a slap." Alara leaned against the railing, her tone almost casual. "Empires have fallen for less. Ask history." "Oh wait, you burned yours." Gasps rippled across the translation net. The Emperor's holographic projection materialized in front of her, towering, crowned with energy. "You think this spectacle frightens me?" he sneered. "It's not meant to," she replied, gaze steady. "It's meant to educate you." He raised a clawed hand. "You will die for your insolence." "Probably," she said with a small shrug. "But not today." She tapped her badge twice. Every human drone in orbit froze mid-flight. A long pause filled the air, pregnant and immense. Then, with mathematical precision, they turned their targeting arrays, not on the Empire cities, but on the empty space directly around the Emperor's fleet. Millions of micro-explosions ignited in perfect synchronization, creating a glowing sphere, a cage of light and radiation. It didn't destroy. It contained. The Emperor's voice faltered. What is this?" "Lesson 1, she said softly. "When humans say we're civilized, it's not because we're harmless. It's because we choose to be." Across the galaxy, the feed resumed. Billions of alien citizens watched in stunned silence as the cage of light pulsed gently, surrounding their ruler's ship like a living sun. The human fleet remained utterly motionless, a constellation of judgment. Kairos turned to her, whispering, "You've made them kneel without firing a shot." Alara's smile was thin. "Then, maybe next time, they'll think before slapping someone holding coffee." The Emperor's image flickered. "You've made your point, creature." "Not yet," she replied. "You still think I'm alone." On cue, additional human transmissions lit up across the system. Earth's allies, colonies, and even private vessels broadcasting the same signal. Mirror protocol acknowledged. One by one, thousands of smaller systems dimmed their planetary lights, revealing orbital patterns identical to hers. The message was unmistakable. Humanity had prepared this for years. "You planned this," the Emperor hissed. Alara tilted her head. "We plan everything. It's how fragile species survive gods." He glared, voice shaking. "You can't maintain this. You'll run out of energy." "Oh, probably," she said cheerfully. "But not before you run out of pride." He stared at her for a long time, and something ancient in his expression broke. "You are monsters." She nodded slightly. "Civilized ones." He vanished. The fleet withdrew. The cage collapsed into quiet light, dissolving across the upper sky. The music faded, replaced by silence, the kind that comes after a gunshot. Alara stood at the window, her reflection merging with the city lights below. For a moment, her eyes softened. "They'll rebuild," she murmured. "They always do." Kairos looked at her as though seeing something both divine and tragic. "And you? What will you rebuild?" "Trust," she said. "Though I suspect it'll take a few millennia." From orbit, the mirror fleet began to realign into departure vectors. One drone paused mid-turn, transmitting a single image to every galactic channel. Alara Vale, standing alone, calm amid devastation. The caption read, "Peacekeeper." She sighed when she saw it. "They never get the tone right," she muttered. Kairos bowed slightly. They will tell stories of you. They already have, she said quietly. I just gave them the ending. Then distant thunder rolled through the sky, the unmistakable sound of a jump drive charging. Not human. The Emperor's ship breaking orbit. A signal cut through the static, carrying his voice one last time. This isn't over, human. Ilara closed her eyes, letting the words wash over her like old music. It never is. She turned toward the viewport, her silhouette framed by firelight, the remnants of battle glittering like stars behind her. Her hand hovered over her badge, hesitating. Then she whispered, Reeves, recall the fleet. Are you sure? Yes, she said. They've seen enough. Her voice softened, almost tender. Let the galaxy remember what restraint looks like. The lights dimmed to black, and only her reflection remained, serene, faintly smiling, and entirely unreadable, as the dawn broke over a wounded empire. Weeks passed, though the galaxy no longer measured time the same way. In the quiet that followed the storm, the stars themselves seemed cautious, as if listening for humanity's next breath. The war that had nearly begun was now a silence that hummed like a warning tone across every comm channel. Whole fleets hovered in uneasy orbit, engines off, waiting for orders that never came. And at the center of it all, alone, unguarded and oddly serene, sat Ilara Vale, the woman they now called the Baba Yaga of Sol. The peace station around her floated near a red dwarf, its light dim and constant, painting her reflection a muted crimson. She had taken residence in an old diplomatic suite, one window, one desk, a single pot of coffee that hissed each morning with defiance. The walls still carried scorch marks from the day the Empire's security drones had fired upon her. She hadn't asked for them to be repaired. Outside her window, ships arrived one by one, emissaries, envoys, the bold and the desperate. Every empire, collective, and federation that had mocked Earth now sent their most eloquent survivors to negotiate under her watch. They didn't call her ambassador anymore. They called her the arbiter. And yet, when the automatic doors opened and another procession of trembling dignitaries entered, Ilara simply lifted her eyes from the cup she cradled and said, Please, sit. I promise not to kill anyone before coffee. Nervous laughter followed. Always. It broke the tension. It reminded them she was human, fragile, unpredictable, terrifyingly kind. The lead delegate today was a Sarati noble, his bioluminescent skin flickering in anxious patterns. We brought terms, he said, voice thin. The Emperor has abdicated. The throne will stand neutral if Earth guarantees non-aggression. Ilara studied him quietly. You mean, she said, if I guarantee it? He swallowed. Yes. For a long moment, she said nothing. The only sound was the faint tick of cooling metal and the drip of a leaky water line. Finally, she set her cup down and leaned forward. Do you know what mercy costs, Lord Sarati? He blinked, unsure how to answer. Discipline, she said. It's easy to destroy. Harder to stop once you start. She rose, crossing to the window where the stars shimmered like a patient audience. Earth never wanted your war, but you drew blood, mine specifically, so I gave you a performance. Her eyes met his in the glass. You all watched. Kairos entered then, the old insectoid moving slower these days, his translucent carapace dimmed with fatigue. The fleets await your verdict, he said. If you give the word, the armistice will be ratified. Ilara nodded. Then we'll sign it. No reparations, no tributes, no ceremonies. Just understanding. Sarati tilted his head. Understanding of what? She turned to face him fully. That peace isn't a kindness. It's a mirror. You'll either look into it and see what you almost became, or you'll shatter it, and we'll start again. He bowed deeply, the bioluminescent veins of his temples dimming to pale blue, a sign of humility among his kind. You have my oath. When he left, Kairos lingered by the window. You frightened him less than usual, he said. I'm softening with age, she replied. That's what worries me. She smiled faintly, but her gaze remained on the stars. Do you ever think, she asked, that the galaxy needs monsters so it can remember what civility looks like? Kyrus clicked his mandibles softly. Perhaps. But monsters who regret being necessary are the only kind worth fearing. The coffee went cold between them. Outside, broadcasts were already rewriting her story. News feeds called her the architect of tranquility. Others whispered names darker and older. The human queen, the deathless woman, the god of restraint. Videos replayed her battle in endless loops, slowed to reverent silence, as if she had danced through it rather than fought. Someone remixed Beethoven's Seventh with her voice repeating, "Power is rarely where you're looking." It went viral across 12 systems. Children played war, pretending to be her. Soldiers tattooed her call sign across their arms. Ilara didn't watch any of it. She couldn't. She spent her evenings reading old Earth poetry, pages flickering on a holographic screen. Sometimes she would pause, stare at her reflection, and whisper lines to herself just to feel something human again. "We make our own ghosts," she murmured once, "and then teach them diplomacy." On the 10th night of uneasy peace, a soft chime signaled a new visitor. The doors parted, and Admiral Reeves stepped through, uniform immaculate, eyes weary. "You've been ignoring command transmissions," he said. "I'm on vacation," she replied. He snorted. "You turned half the galaxy into a trauma study, and now you want time off. Don't I deserve some?" He hesitated, then approached the window beside her. The red dwarf glowed faintly across the hull of his shuttle beyond. "The Council wants you home," he said. "Earth's uneasy. They're afraid of you too." Her mouth curved into something like a smile. "Good. Fear's universal. Maybe we're finally relatable." Reeves looked at her closely. "You didn't just save Earth, Ilara. You changed how the galaxy sees us. You made them believe we're unbeatable," she finished. He nodded. Her eyes softened. That was the point of Project Mirror. Not conquest, perception. Sometimes fear keeps peace better than treaties. "But at what cost to you?" She turned away. "Everything costs something, Admiral. I just pay faster than most." He opened his mouth to speak, then stopped as the room dimmed. The red dwarf's light flickered, a brief eclipse. A shadow crossed the window, massive, deliberate. Reeves's hand went to his weapon. Ilara raised hers in calm warning. The shadow resolved into a ship, black and silent, bearing no insignia. Its hull gleamed with faint silver symbols, the mark of the fallen emperor. A single transmission crackled through, encrypted in ancient code. "Baba Yaga. Conversation pending." Reeves tensed. "It's him." Ilara nodded, eyes narrowing. "I know. You can go." She looked at him, voice almost gentle. "I already did, the moment he struck me." She reached for her coat, the same one she had worn during the Senate confrontation. The faint bloodstain at the cuff remained. As she fastened it, her movements were deliberate, unhurried, like a ritual she'd performed 1,000 times. Kyrus appeared again in the doorway, reading the tension immediately. "You're going to him," he said quietly. "Yes." "Then this is not peace, it's a pause." She gave him a look halfway between apology and defiance. "Peace always is." The chamber lights flickered as the Emperor's ship hailed once more. Reeves stepped closer. "At least take an escort." She shook her head. "Monsters travel alone. Makes for better legends." He almost smiled. "You hate legends. I hate how true they become." The docking bridge extended, a sleek path of light between ships. Beyond the transparent tunnel, the Emperor's silhouette waited, tall, still unreadable. Ilara paused at the threshold. The hum of engines vibrated through her bones. She glanced back once, meeting Reeves's and Kyrus's eyes. "If I don't return." Reeves cut her off. "You will. You always do." She smiled faintly, stepped forward, and disappeared into the corridor of light. Outside, the red dwarf flared, casting long shadows across the peace station. Within minutes, both ships vanished into the dark, leaving only silence and the faint echo of Beethoven drifting through the calm static. And far below, across 100 worlds, children repeated her name in awe and fear, half prayer, half warning, while the galaxy learned the cost of slapping a civilized demon.